Alright, this can be a relatively quick tutorial on flex forehands. This is more so for beginners, newer players, but could help anybody. Just going over some of the basics, things you need to know, things to think about. There's no written rule on flex forehands, just like anything in disc golf, but these are things that could help you. Whether you're trying to learn them, you've never done them, or you're struggling with them, this could help you out. First things first, obviously you gotta learn how to forehand. So probably learning a proper forehand would help you first instead of learning the flex forehand, because flex forehand's not technically great form, but it's a great shot. It's not really how you want to develop your forehand right at the beginning, but we're all guilty of it, trying to get the most out of a disc. So just learn just a pretty good forehand. It doesn't have to be great. Like that one was not that great. Clean forehands. One of the more important things to think about is disc selection. Not all discs are going to perform well on a flex forehand. Some will not perform at all. They'll just go and be on their way. So avoid understable at all costs. Once for a beginner, I'd say something a little slightly overstable, not super duper overstable, because a lot of it could be just your arm speed. It's not fully developed yet, so it's going to make something look much more overstable than it really is. And it may not be the best way to truly learn how to throw a flex forehand. It's more just throwing something super duper overstable, and no matter what, it's going to fade out. So that's a big factor. Disc selection, I'd say if you're trying to learn them, mid-ranges into the fairway drivers, probably not good to go straight distance driver at first, but they'll give you a taste of it. Yeah, anything, I'd say if you're a beginner, maybe 2 fade, probably avoid going into the 3s and 4s, but it's all up to you. There's no rules in disc golf. I'd say the best way to truly learn control on a flex forehand, something with slightly less fade, just to know which angle control and such. So, gonna give you some examples. We got right to left wind today, a little bit of breeze. This is one of the biggest mistakes we all make. I still make it all the time. Sometimes it's like I want to stand up too straight, but you kind of got to be a little bit athletic. When you see a pitcher throw a pitch, it's pretty athletic. So you don't really want to just stand there and chop at it. A lot of times what happens, you start high and you go to low and you just smash it into the ground. It may be stable enough and it flips out before it hits the ground and flares, but it's kind of a mistake you don't want to do a lot. So, but for an example, it's like this. Standing up straight, starting high, and going low, like that. Try to avoid that. You want more of a plane, going straight at your target, give it time to fade out. So just pushing straight instead of starting high and going low. You also don't really want to start low, go high, you're more likely to throw nose up. You just want the disc to be able to just work on a neutral plane. More so like this. This isn't going to have a ton of angle. You can see pushed. That was a little bit high to low, but that was acceptable. Angle control, probably the very most important. There's a lot of factors involved, many things. Disc weight, the thrower themselves, and the conditions they're in, or even if it's a little bit of gravity involved, like going downhill. So we have this wind coming right to left right now. Wind is always something you have to think about. Specifically if you're throwing into a headwind, it's going to take a lot more time to fight out of it. So this is just going to take time to get used to what disc to throw, when to throw it, how much arm speed to throw. But that's just takes time to learn that. So if you're throwing into a headwind, maybe a little bit less angle. It's going to take a lot more time to fight out. Tailwind, even same thing can happen. It could be just pushing so fast it has no interest in fading out. So keep that in mind. We're going to talk about angle control a little bit more. I would say ideally starting out, I love to use the clock. That's pointing about 1:30, probably 2 p.m., 2 a.m., whatever you want to call it. I'd say that's a good starting point. Depending on the disc, you could maybe go about this far. But I have seen some people throw like that, and that's just, to me, that's not good. Unless it's super duper stable, but most times you don't even want to throw that. So I'd say right around that 2 is a good starting point. You can adjust it however you like. Again, it depends on your disc, depends on your arm speed, and it depends on the conditions. We have 2 Ricky Fellens here. I know this one's nice and stable, and this thing is a meat hook. Not a meat hook, but super duper stable. So, gotta know your disc, gotta know what to expect out of them. I'll throw these, try to throw them about the same way. Remember that 2 p.m. With a little more than 2. But, so, stability wise, it's still faded out, but not like this one. Didn't even give me a chance, didn't want to fly anywhere. So, just because a felon is a felon, not all felons are the same. So clearly we changed locations here. Not quite as picturesque, but there were some soccer people and we needed to get off the field because it's a soccer field. But any other time it's a great place to practice, just be courteous. One thing to mention, when you're doing this in the field, it's a lot different than on a course. So on a course, you're in many different scenarios. You could be behind a rock, behind a tree, behind anything, in a creek. So many factors. So it's not going to be, it's good practice in the field, but it's not really going to be the same as what you're going to face in the course, because every different shot is completely different. Every shot, so many variables. So one thing to think about the Jomez follow flight. I've mentioned this before. You see that line that tracks the disc? That's really what you need to be thinking about, really on every throw, but flex forehands, importantly. Know your disc, know how it's going to fly, and kind of visualize that line, and it'll tell you really where you need to put it. Looking out at that bag where we're throwing, you probably don't want to throw directly at it, but knowing your disc, make the adjustment. So if you throw directly at it, it may fade off a little more right than you want, but really think about your line, what it needs, how much angle it needs, and try to a little nose up, falling right, stable, just outside circle. Man, that was pretty good. This wind's not really letting them fight out as fast as they should, so really think about the angle, make the adjustments. It's a lighter one, circle. That one's good, I like that. Pushed it right, pushed it left, go right. I about aced it. Yeah, really think about that. It's going to help you on every shot possible. Visualizing your line, visualizing your target at first, where comparative to where your destination is at the end, versus just throwing at the basket. So definitely think about that. Another thing, this is kind of a wrenching kind of form. It's not the finest forehand form, and I don't have the best form by any means. But if you overdo this shot, you may start having some pain in your arm. It's not just, it's kind of a weird throw. So try to avoid overdoing it. That's practicing in on course. Not every time you're in a situation you have to throw a flex forehand. So you don't want to just rely only on flex forehand. Another thing it can lead to is messing up your regular forehand. So you're going for like a hyzer shot, and all of a sudden you got hyzer and it's going flex forehand because you're just so comfortable throwing that form. But other than that, try to avoid the chop, avoid really understable discs, and then just remember on headwind, tailwind, the disc might not fly quite like what you think. And I've been experiencing that today. Some of my more stable stuff is just riding the wind, like a right to left wind is just riding the wind and just not giving me much of what it usually would. That's another thing to think about. And then obviously gravity. If you're throwing really downhill, you may want to do a little less angle because gravity pulls it. It's not going to have time to fade out. It just starts speeding up and you're not going to get the full flight. So that's about it. Hope that helped. Again, it's not a expert lesson or anything, but there's just some tips that can help. It's a great shot to have, a great tool to have. I throw them all the time. Just, yeah, thanks for watching. Like and subscribe. One more for the road. We'll see. It may suck. Oh, a little high. So that works. That wasn't the plane, but a little that high. You see it a lot. Thanks for watching.